Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast, coming at you live on September 13th on a Tuesday. And Gel, to kick it off, I want to quote the famous Jimmy Johnson. How about them Bears?
That sounds more like a Dave Wanstead quote.
Probably.
The old mustache.
Yes. No. We'll get into some NFL later. Do you have a question?
Does that Wanstead mustache like not play as perfectly as possible for the city of Chicago?
It's no Ditka stash, but
I mean, of course, but like, where else can you get away with that? Where else is that mustache more fitting than Chicago?
Yeah. No, that's a valid point.
No, I'm sure during those winter games it got a little messy from a little potential drainage, but
God,
how's that for a visual?
Ugh, not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob.
All right, so we're going to get into some of our questions after week one during our NFL segment later on in the show, but wanted to bring one to the forefront. Going back to that Thursday night game, Gel, can anyone beat the Bills this season? They look like they were firing on all cylinders. Take down the defending champs. That offense is just absolutely deadly. Bills, clear favorites.
They have to be. They didn't just take down the Super Bowl champs. They destroyed the Super Bowl champs. I mean, it was a bloodbath. Stafford, how many times did Stafford go down or either get sacked or was under heavy pressure? That was constant. Granted, pretty much most offensive lines across the league looked pretty bad, and that's how usually the seasons start off. Defensive lines are generally way ahead of offensive lines, given that there's kind of a choreography to being, to having a stout offensive line where the D line is just athletes going and attacking. So it's a lot easier week one, first month of the season, where you're going to see probably a lot more defensive lineman dominance than maybe later on in the season. But yeah, I mean, Von Miller looked really good for the Bills. Who knows? Is he going to be able to finish out that 6-year contract? Probably not. He's already in his 30s. But hey, the Bills are here to win now, and hopefully Jim Kelly doesn't get in the way this time.
Right. No, I agree. That was just an absolute trouncing. And I mean, we saw over the weekend too what the rest of that AFC East looks like. With Miami looked okay going up against the Patriots, and I mean, the Jets are the Jets, so they're not going to have any competition there. So it's going to have to come from somewhere else.
But Joe Flacco isn't going to be the answer.
Nah, not this year.
Man, the second that I heard Joe Flacco starting, Ravens money line -280. I'm willing to take it. If the Ravens lose and I end up losing my money 3 times over, fine. But it's about a 100% guarantee that ain't gonna happen with Joe Flacco against the Ravens. He looked like the Flacco of old that we all know and hate to watch.
Right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Make sure you subscribe and click the bell on our YouTube page. We are currently live right now, so if you are streaming that, you can ask us any questions, have that chat up, and we're happy to answer and respond to any questions that are asked. If you want to follow us on our individual socials, Gel can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Got the TikTok page up as well. Gel's firing away those social medias over the weekend, letting you know his favorite bets and anything else that he feels like popping in on a Sunday morning there. But
by the way, I'm going to do a lot. By the time that I put up my betting video up before those noon games, had some uploading issues, and those videos didn't end up uploading until like 11:40. So apologies there. That's a little late, but I'm gonna definitely try to get that out first thing on Sunday mornings so that you guys can have some. If you are a bettor out there, I'll help you become a better, and if not, hopefully just something to get the gears churning in your brain and maybe, give you some additional things to think about.
Absolutely. Speaking of things to think about, there's a lot of college teams that are thinking they're in a good spot or some that are in a bad spot. And we're going to get into that. Got our week 2 NCAA breakdown here, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to go and just kind of talk about some teams, coaches, things in general that are either trending up or trending down. Again, it's still early, might be some overreactions here, but got you covered.
That's the best part about football. We can overreact every single week.
Yep.
It's not like baseball where you've got a game every day. You can't overreact. We can overreact 17 times a week this year.
Yep.
It's great.
I'm going to kick it off.
Or 17 times once a week for 17 weeks. I said 17 weeks. I don't even know what I said. 17 times a week, I think I said. That ain't right.
Well, it could be if you wanted to.
Well, no, you're right. I guess, yeah.
I'm going to kick it off with one of my trending up topics, and I'm going to give a shout out here to the Sun Belt Conference. The Fun Belt absolutely dominated this last weekend. Marshall getting the win on the road over Notre Dame. App State knocking off Texas A&M in College Station, and Georgia Southern going into Nebraska and essentially firing Scott Frost himself. So we'll talk about that. Scott Frost no longer with Nebraska. Nebraska wanted him gone so bad they didn't wait till October 1st when his contract would have reduced $7.5 million. 2 more games, $7.5 million. But ultimately, I think it was time. I mean, Scott Frost, he shouldn't have even been coaching to start off this season. They should have cut ties last year. But no, bringing it back to the Sun Belt, hell of a weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess obviously App State appears to be pretty legit. I got to be honest, man. I was a little disappointed they didn't make it into the top 25. Because they hung right in there with UNC, and then they beat A&M, who was ranked as the number 6 team in the country. I thought App State had a chance to jump into that top 25. The Badgers aren't in the top 25 anymore, but shit, man, if we're being honest, that'd be a pretty good game. App State at Wisconsin. My favorite story of that game, though, has nothing. It doesn't have to do with anything that happened during the game. It's the ESPN College Game Day reaction after the game that is my favorite part. This upcoming weekend, they were supposed to go to a game at A&M at Kyle Field, and instead they flipped it, and now they're going to App State on Saturday morning. That is just doubling down on the disgraceful game that A&M had, and they're just wiping their tears. ESPN's trying to wipe up their tears right now, and really just rubbing it in and saying, "Yep, we're not even College Game Day is not even coming. We're going to you lost to the following week to take your place." Yeah,
no, I mean I think Miami was coming in this week, so that would have been a hell of a matchup. Texas A&M potentially would have been in that top 5, top 6. And yeah, I don't blame them for flipping. I mean, that was ugly.
It was ugly. It was fugly.
Yes.
I'm going to start off. Anything else from you on the Fun Belt?
That was pretty much it. Just want to give them a shout out to some awesome wins. And yeah, Marcus Freeman starting off 0-3. I think that was the first time since like the 90s that Notre Dame, or early 2000s, that they've starting off, or coach has lost his first 3 games in a Notre Dame,
losing the bowl game last year and then the first 2 this year. Yep. I'm going to move over. I'm going to give you something that I think is trending down, and that is the AP voters. We were questioning this from the very beginning when we saw Notre Dame at 5. We said, hold up, that seems way too high. They just lost Brian Kelly, one of their best coach since Lou Holtz, maybe. I mean, that's legit their most consistent program they've had.
Wasn't good.
Big boy Weiss. And then not only Notre Dame at 5, but also they had A&M at 6, which we questioned. Both of those teams being at that high, being in the top 6. Notre Dame, rookie head coach, lost their quarterback, Jack Cohen, who maybe Jack Cohen's a little bit better than we thought, given that how rough they've started out this season. And then A&M, I don't know what they did to deserve a number 6 ranking to start off this season. I mean, they had a great recruiting class.
Yeah, I think
that won't matter for 2 years.
No.
It made no sense for them to be up that high. And then, so that's just touching preseason. In season, I still don't understand why they had Bama at number 1 over Georgia going into this past week, because Georgia was clearly the more dominant team. I mean, they wiped the floor with Oregon, and Alabama showed that, I mean, based on that Texas game, they had no business being that number 1 team in the country, and Georgia continued to roll in week 2. So I didn't understand that. And then one last reason why why AP voting is just trending down. They have no freaking clue what to do with the Gators. They go from unranked up to 12. Now they're back down to 18. Like, make up your damn mind here.
Right.
I get that there's big swings and that Florida had a sweet first, week 1 win, and they looked really impressive. But I don't know how you make a jump from unranked up to there and then lose to a very, very quality Kentucky team and then drop back to 18. It's like, maybe don't have so many damn extremes here, you AP voters. I don't know. I just have question after question after question. I think maybe the only thing that they've gotten 100% right so far is Ohio State being the number 3 team.
Yeah. No.
Seriously.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's been so much flip-flopping this year, which, I mean, as a college football fan, that you just want to turn on the TV and see competitive matchups and fun games. It's been a blast so far. You couldn't ask for a better 3 weeks of college football. But yeah, AP, I mean, they're clearly drunk. But yeah, I mean, the initial preseason rankings, those are so hard though too. Like you said, Texas A&M had no business being up there, and I think, like you said, the only reason they were up there is because of that number 1 recruiting class, which, again, they're not going to be making an impact. A good chunk of them, at least, are not going to be making an impact for a couple of years down the road. So no, it's a bunch of baloney.
And yeah, and yes, preseason AP rankings really literally shouldn't mean anything, but they do. I mean, they do for when it comes time to making the schedules, what's going to be on the primetime games, what's going to be the big ABC night game, all that stuff. So that's why these AP rankings do matter, even though they technically mean nothing, they matter in that way. And it matters when it comes down to later on in the season, when I mean, really the only thing that ultimately matters is what's the CFP rankings when they start doing that, which I believe that's usually starts week 6, probably is usually the first time the playoff rankings come out, somewhere.
Yeah,
in that
somewhere in that. I think like the beginning to middle of October, I think maybe.
Yeah, so we're still we're maybe a month out from that, which that's when the rankings actually do matter. But like I said, I mean, the AP rankings matter as to which games are going to be the featured games. And I guess A&M is lucky that they weren't one of the featured games this weekend, because they got it was an ugly one. I think they might have just been on AC or SEC network.
Yep. One of my other trending up is Arkansas. Arkansas is off to a 2-0 start, got a win against Cincinnati, another win this last weekend against South Carolina at home. And Raheem Sanders, KJ Jefferson have looked really solid.
KJ Jefferson's legit, dude,
to start off the season. So I'm very curious though. Again, they are trending up right now. It is early on in the season. Let me give you their next 5 games, Joe.
Uh-oh.
Home against Missouri State. Shouldn't have any issues there. At A&M, we'll see what A&M team shows up there. Home against Bama, at Mississippi State, at BYU. So that is 4 out of their next 5 games after Missouri State are going to be a test. So we'll learn a lot about
that's a
Arkansas.
Sneaky one. I'm sure that when they scheduled that, they weren't thinking they're going to be facing, a BYU team that's in the top 15.
Yep.
That's going to be a sneaky. That might be a sneaky one. But yeah, KJ Jefferson got to be incredibly impressed with, with the way that he's starting this season. He was kind of somewhere, he was among the names of players that could be in that Heisman race to start off the year. And he's proven why. I mean, no picks, over 75% completion percentage. He's also done a lot on the ground to start the season. So, and start his entire career. So, yeah, I mean, off to an awesome start for Arkansas. All right, I'm going to stick with a team that's trending up, and I'm going to stay in the same conference. I should say maybe a coach that's trending up here, and that's got to be Mark Stoops, coach of Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
he just passed Bear Bryant, one of the most iconic coaches in college football history, for most wins in Kentucky program history. But the reason why I think he's trending up is because any of these big time schools that can their coach at the end of the year, he's the first name that he's the first guy that's got to be called here. I mean, Kentucky's a basketball school. They're not a football school. And he's turned that into a super legit program over the few years that he's been there. I don't see, he's now going to be the first guy called. And hey, that means a major payday, whether that's college or the pros. I think, the Stoops name, it obviously fits the college, kind of that last name fits college. Just a tad. But yeah, I mean, his future up Kentucky looks legit. They, the quote unquote number 12 Florida Gators took them down pretty easily this past weekend. So absolutely Mark Stoops going up. I loved his post-game presser when, the reporter asked him, how does this feel? What does this mean to you? And he just kind of, he's extremely humble, saying, I just got a good group of guys, got a great staff. And, I'm just lucky to be a part of what we've built. So that's just a really humbling response, not being like, I put together a great staff. I put together some great recruiting classes. I helped build this program up. No, I'm just happy to be part of what we have put together. And I don't know. That's just a humbling thing to say. And it just helped me kind of become a little bit bigger of a fan of the guy, not just the coach, but the guy.
Yeah, no, he's done an absolutely phenomenal job. I mean, Kentucky, I don't know, 5 years ago even was a team you just laugh at. You'd see them pop up on a schedule. Waffle House. But Kentucky is a team that put no fear into anybody a couple of years back, and he's turned that into a program now that it's no sure win, and there's a good chance that they're going to end up beating you. Do you think he ends up just hanging around Kentucky? I mean, there's going to be some other jobs that are open, but it's an SEC job. He's turned around that program where he's been getting in some decent recruits. You're in a pretty weak. Again, once Texas and Oklahoma come over, we'll see what that realignment looks like as far as divisions, conferences.
Good point
with that. But right now that SEC East is weak. You have Georgia, and then from there, we'll see what Tennessee is. You'd mentioned Florida bouncing around like a pinball machine in the AP rankings, but outside of that, it's up for grabs. You pull off a shocking win and pull off a win against Georgia, and you've got a front seat to that SEC championship game. So it's not like it's the West right now where you have a bunch of other teams. You got Bama, LSU, A&M, that are usually perennial powerhouses and going to be competing, where, right now, Kentucky, it's just Georgia that you're fighting against for the most part.
I think he may stick around. I could almost look at this like kind of the Luke Fickell situation, where maybe Fickell sticks around 1 year after Desmond Ridder leaves. And maybe after this season, assuming Cincinnati has a good year, he realizes, okay, it's my time to jump. I think maybe Stoops sticks around 1 more year after this year, once Will Levis leaves. And if maybe he has a down season, still a good season, but maybe a little bit more of a down season, it's kind of a reality check as to what, the reality of where Kentucky football, we don't have the ceiling that, obviously not using, I'm not saying these coaches or these programs are going to have openings, but we don't have the ceiling of an Alabama, a Clemson, an Ohio State, an Oklahoma, a Texas, for example. So a USC. So I think it's going to obviously have to be the right job that opens up. I don't think he would bolt Kentucky for like a UCLA if Chip Kelly left, but if UCLA were willing to pay up with them going to the Big Ten, maybe he would consider it. Although Mark Stoops doesn't necessarily seem like an LA guy. That there's a mismatch there, but no, I would bet he kind of goes the Luke Fickell routes and sticks around one more year, and and then maybe he jumps. But the fear in that is who's the Iowa State coach? Matt Campbell.
Yep.
He had a chance to jump at an NFL job or a high-end job, and now nobody's even bringing up that name. So that's what you risk if you do decide to stick around at your school. Now, like I said, Matt Campbell's not even being mentioned as a name out there. So if Mark Stoops sticks around and kind of falls off, the opportunities might not be out there anymore.
Yeah, no, and it'll be interesting too. I think Stoops sticks around for a little bit just until some of this conference realignment is done. You don't want to jump to a team that you think is in one conference and then all of a sudden they get left behind in the dust. So I think right now he's got a good gig in the SEC, which we know SEC and the Big Ten are going to be the two power conferences right now, and we'll just kind of go from there with it. But
yeah, for sure.
I'm glad you brought up Campbell's name, Joe, because one of my trending down teams is the team that his Cyclones beat this last weekend to take home the Cyhawk trophy, and that is Iowa. Iowa has scored 14 total points on the season so far, putting up 2 safeties and a field goal their first game, and then one touchdown this last game. So
Iowa, touchdown on the season in 2 games.
Sitting at 1-1 very easily could be 0-2 right now. This offense is just absolutely putrid. Defense is typical Iowa defense, but man, and I mean, I guess we can lump the Badgers into here too and just say that this Big Ten West division is just god awful. Just awful.
I mean, at this point, who can you say is the odds-on favorite?
Minnesota probably, but
Ibrahim Ibrahim.
Yeah.
Ibrahim, I mean, he
was it Tanner?
Yeah, I know who you're talking, Tanner whatever.
Morgan.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Ibrahim looks like himself pre-torn Achilles, so good to see him back and rolling for his own sake, but yeah, that's rough when it looks like Mr. Row the Boat is gonna is the front runner for the Big Ten West. That's not generally a good sign. Not a sign of strength, certainly. I can't imagine the Gophers stand much of a chance against the Buckeyes in a conference championship game.
No.
I've got one other guy that I think is down, and that's going to be Jimbo Fisher. I mean, you have to question, is he a good coach or is he just a really good recruiter? I mean, obvious, along with, his boosters being able to pay for whatever the hell he needs.
Right.
But I read somewhere that comparing him to Kevin Sumlin, again, a guy that would bring in some sweet talent, but never could deliver anything at least super meaningful. It's not really a good sign if you're being compared to Kevin Sumlin. So any Aggies down here don't. He had his nice run there with Manziel, but that's not because of Sumlin. That's because of Manziel and Mike Evans and that some of the studs on Myles Garrett. I was one of his guys as well. So
is Vaughn there too?
I don't think Sumlin was there that early.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jimbo, he's got to start winning some games. They're not paying him. They didn't give him a 10-year deal just to have some nice recruiting classes. He's got to deliver on the field. And so far he hasn't really at least done anything truly meaningful. And the other piece to this puzzle is how safe is that quarterback job for Haynes King? They do have a 5-star Connor Wegman coming in this past season, also a transfer from LSU, Max Johnson, at quarterback. So is it time for A&M to really potentially shake up that QB position? Because Haynes King was a very high-end recruit, but if he's got to be able to beat App State.
Yeah, no, they need to do something. I mean, it's unexcusable. Like you said, Jimbo Fisher, they brought him in from coming over from Florida State, where he turned around that program, and Florida State was one of the best programs in the country at that time.
And now look at where Florida State is.
Yeah, and not great, but no, comes over to Texas A&M, and you think that he would be competing for that SEC West championship, and hasn't even made it to one yet. I mean, it's been Alabama, LSU.
Not even really been close.
Yeah. So no, I don't know. A&M, yeah, you've got to look forward to, and you can look forward to some of those recruiting classes that are going to be coming up. But again, like you said, is he just a really good recruiter and then just can't get the most?
You can have great recruits, but if you can't develop them into winning players,
doesn't do anything.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, their rankings for their recruits coming in. So my last one I think I have here, I've done 2 trending up. I'll give another trending down here, and that is West Virginia. West Virginia is currently wasting JT Daniels' start so far. JT Daniels thrown for 570 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, and they're just not good.
Over?
Yes, 0 for 2.
I guess you got to hope for JT Daniels' sake, putting up these numbers is going to get him drafted, or, maybe not a first round pick, but somewhere to play in some, or at least be a solid backup in the NFL, be drafted, kind of a 4th round ish type of player, maybe a 3rd, kind of like where Sam Howell got picked. If JT Daniels continues to put up these types of numbers, that's definitely possible. Daniels was a high-end recruit coming into USC, now on his 3rd collegiate team, but so he is putting up numbers. That's obviously a bright spot for West Virginia, Mountain Mama, but you got to be able to, again, it comes down to winning games. Who gives a shit who your players are if you're not winning games?
Yeah.
All right, well, let me finish on a positive, I guess, sort of positive note. I guess I'll go trending up with a little bit of a downer along with it. Right, currently trending up, Tennessee Volunteers finally look like they're halfway legit. I mean, Josh Heupel, maybe their best coach in this century.
Yeah.
They haven't done shit since T. Martin was their quarterback back in like 2000. So it looks like he's got a halfway decent program. I was definitely, I was definitely like I'll believe it when I see it with Hayden Hooker. He looks to be the part. They got a nice win this past week. So I guess trending up in that sense for Tennessee for this season. The only shitty part that they have to look forward to is that they have to, probably starting next year, is eat all of Jeremy Pruitt's recruiting violations, where next year you may see some scholarship reductions, some recruiting restrictions, and that kind of sucks for Tennessee that they have to, that Josh Heupel is going to be the one that has to be the, what's the opposite of beneficiary of Jeremy Pruitt's violations? Like ultimately the recipient of those violations. So that's what sucks for Tennessee, but at least they know they've got a sweet coach in Josh Heupel. And, maybe this transfer portal can really help Tennessee, and maybe the recruiting violations won't hurt as much, but it's good. I mean, Tennessee's been a program that we've been just kind of sitting there waiting for them to finally pop again for the first time in a couple decades, basically. Josh Heupel might be the guy to do it. So you got to be kind of excited finally if you're a Vols fan.
Yeah, Hendon Hooker's looked awesome so far, and like you mentioned,
hardly know her.
Yeah, and they won on the road in overtime against Pitt this last week. So that was a big road win for them before I believe they start SEC play this week or next week. But I know they've got a tough slate coming up for the SEC. They got Georgia obviously in their conference. They play Bama this year, so it's going to be. It'll be.
There's no easy
see.
schedule in the SEC.
No. But
that's
if
just
you
kind of, we can say
Bama,
that about everybody.
If you can avoid Bama, though, that's a favorable schedule. But
I guess Alabama has a nice schedule given that they have Austin P on there. What a
shocker.
Freaking joke.
Right.
Damn it, Saban, get it together.
Yeah, no, Josh Heupel's another one in there with like Mark Stoops, where you've got a nice team in the SEC East. It's up for grabs outside of Georgia. All it takes, again, is one of these teams to knock off Georgia, and you can kind of go right into that championship game. But yeah, we'll see once these recruiting violations come down. That'll be interesting, but it is good to see Tennessee back on the map. They've been a team in the past that has high expectations. Their fan base has high expectations for them. They've shown flashes in the past, but just couldn't put it together. They lose some sloppy games and just
I know you like them nice and sloppy.
Yes. But.
And what's ultimately kind of fucked about Jeremy Pruitt, I think it's pretty well known that like the SEC has been paying players well before it was legal to do so. He's just a big enough dumbass to actually get caught. Get your shit together.
Speaking of dumbasses, Joe, let's transition over to the NFL. I know you want to put some coaches on blast. You had quite a few questionable coaching calls this last weekend, so I'll go ahead and give you the floor here.
Well, let's start off with last night's game. Again, we're live on a Monday, Tuesday, live on a Tuesday. Let's go to Monday Night Football, and Matt Eberflus, God damn it, Nathaniel Hackett. Too many coaches on my mind. Nathaniel Hackett. We've learned, not sure if he can hack it. They had a minute and 11 seconds left. 4th and 5 at about the 45 yard line or so, just inside the 50.
45.
Yeah. And but a 4th and 5, and it looked like Hackett did not know, that whole Broncos offense did not know what they were doing. A minute and 11 seconds left, and they literally just ran the clock down to 20 seconds. Everybody on the Broncos kind of looked like, okay, are we going to call a timeout? Are we going to go for it? What are we going to do? And because it's not like, so, and then Russell Wilson with 1 second left on the clock, on the play clock, has to call a timeout with 20 seconds left in the game, which ultimately set up a 64-yard game-winning field goal attempt, which went wide left. But the thing is, it looked like nobody on the Broncos knew that was the plan, and that it seemed like Nathaniel Hackett just kind of froze. You'd think that if the Broncos knew that they were that was the plan was to kick the field goal, the team would have, gone off to the sideline, and just Hackett would have just waited around till that 1 second mark, and he would have called the timeout himself. But no, everybody just kind of waltzed up to the line looking around, and Russ didn't even really like make any phony, hut kind of things, kind of phony snaps or anything like that. And then he ends up being the one to call a timeout with 1 second left, because it just showed that Hackett did not really know what he was doing at the end of that game. Yeah.
Schefter Hardly Knower tweeted out about an hour ago, and he'll quote his tweet here. It says, addressing his decision to attempt a game-winning 64-yard field goal last night, Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett just told reporters, quote, looking back at it, we definitely should have gone for it, end quote.
Oh, yeah, no shit. You have Russell Wilson. You just gave him a $245 million contract. He's got the most 2-minute drives to finish off either the first half or the game since he came into the league in 2010. He's got the most score or most points inside 2 minutes. And you just gave him that massive contract, and you're not going to put it in Russell Wilson's hands. Instead, you're going to put it in your kicker's hands or foot, I guess.
Well, the kicker
Kicking was awful all weekend too.
And the kicker is I don't know how many from 62 plus yards. He's tried multiple field goals from past 62 yards and hasn't made any in his career. It's in Seattle, which we know is a hard place to kick in general.
I mean, you're at sea level when you're in Seattle, and he's used to kicking at mile high where the altitude is, you're talking about a mile of difference in altitude. So it's not even normal kick, it's not the kicking conditions that he's necessarily even used to. It's week 1 as well.
Yeah. No, it was just absolutely mind-boggling. And then, like you said, to let the clock run down that much where they were just absolutely clueless on what they were doing. I mean, I could see if you were at the 30-yard line or something like that. Like, that's something you would do.
For sure. That's clock. Completely different, though.
But, yeah, I don't know if he was confused and thought he was on the Seahawks 40-45 instead of his own. But, yeah, no, that was just absolutely mind-boggling. And obviously could tell it was his first time coaching.
It felt like it was just a freeze up, and he's like, "Oh shit, I don't know what to do." And then there were 20 or 30 seconds that run off, and he's like, "Ah shit, well it's too late to call a timeout now." So, Russ, call a timeout at 1 second. Like just completely froze. And yeah, it's his first game as a head coach, but you were hired to be the head coach, and so you have to understand clock management. Something that we've all killed Mike McCarthy for in the past is horrible clock management. Go back to last year in that game against the Niners. 14 seconds left. Dak runs that QB draw, and then they don't save themselves enough time to get a spike down. Like, this is the clock management shit that loses games and ultimately kick the Cowboys out of the playoffs. Ultimately, in this division, this decision in this division of the AFC West, with how competitive it is, this one loss, that may come back to bite him in the end, and maybe that screws him out of a wild card spot. So these are the kind of pressure decisions that you have to make if you're hired as a head coach of a team that has extremely lofty expectations.
Yeah. Shout out to the coach that you thought you were talking about, Matt Eberflus. Gets his first win, his Bears debut, knocking off the Niners, a nice home upset. And all I can say is, Jill, that was one sloppy field up there on Sunday. Good thing they put down the turf the week before.
Yeah, that's all. That's gone. Yeah. Put down new turf.
Right.
Yeah, that was that just looked like a wet carpet out there.
So bad. That's one of those games, though, like if you're a kid, you love playing in because you're just sliding around, just getting soaked and just having a blast. But
well, you saw that at the end of the game once they clinched the W. Fields and some of his teammates running down doing the penguin dive in the end zone.
It was like a good 10-yard slide. I don't think he did. But
that would have been nice. That would have been nice if he did that. Yeah, I guess he doesn't, it wouldn't matter. You could dump did he get a Gatorade dump?
I don't know. Probably not. I mean, it wouldn't
be kind of pointless. But no, obviously an extremely ugly game, but Jesus Christ. Trey Lance in that game looked terrible.
Yeah.
It did look like Fields had, they kind of embraced Fields a little bit more and his rollout ability, where he was, not so much in the pocket, at least a few more rollouts, which they weren't doing last year.
The first half, they weren't doing. It looked like I can't remember if I texted our group or if I was texting my brother, but I was just like, man, are we still paying Matt Nagy to run this offense? Because it was identical to what they were running last year. 2 runs up the middle, drop Fields back, keep him in the pocket and have the pocket collapse and have him get sacked. But finally in the second half, they must have been like, oh, this is Matt Nagy's playbook. This was
a minute.
Wrong binder. but then they started rolling him out. And there was a broken down play that Fields hit Dante Pettis for that 50-some yard touchdown, that there wasn't a 49er within 15 yards of Pettis when he caught the ball. But Fields still made a good decision there. From last year, he probably would have tried to force it somewhere else, but he's taking a look at different reads, seeing who's open, and had a nice touchdown pass to Kwame St. Brown too. That was one that ended up taking the lead there. But
what was pretty cool, ESB, Equinemius, and Amon-Ra St. Brown both scored touchdowns within like a minute of each other. That's pretty badass. That's godsend. Yeah, I guess the only other thing coaching wise that I have to jump into is your former Bears coach, Lovie Smith, going for a freaking tie. 20 seconds left at midfield, 4th and 3. 20 seconds left in overtime, 4th and 3 midfield. And he decides to punt the ball. I mean, what are we doing here? Nobody wants to start 0-1, but or 0-1 and I guess nobody wants to start 0-1. Nobody also either wants to start 0-1. I guess it's a half a game better, but who really gives a shit? You're the Texans. Like you want to send that message that like we're here to compete, we're here to fight, we're here for wins. We're not here for ties. It's not like the Texans are, a team with extremely lofty expectations. And hey, maybe instead of a loss here, we get a tie, and that's what gives us the division. If we're being honest, are the Texans really competing for a playoff spot? Not this year. So, they looked like it the way they played in the first half, but their second half looked like, being up 20-3 and then blowing that 17-0 run by Indy. That's the Houston that we're used to.
Yeah.
But if you're Lovie Smith, don't you have to send that message? Like, we're here to win. We play to win the game. Like, isn't that the message that you have to send here? You're in game 1, week 1.
Yeah, and it's not like his job security is that great. If Houston ends up with a top pick this year, they bring in a new quarterback and draft one. Yeah, they're probably going to just re-jump and reboot the whole franchise. So, he had a nice tenure with the Bears for a while, but after that, he's been bouncing around. He's at University of Illinois for a while. That didn't pan out. He was a D coordinator last year back in Houston when he came back to the NFL. So it's not like he's some guru that is going to be given a huge leash there. Yeah, he should because it's his first season as the head coach. But no, what do you have to lose if you're Houston? Like, okay, so you don't get it. Indy you turn the ball over. Yeah, there's probably a decent chance that Indy could get 10 yards and kick a field goal. But
there's 20 seconds left. Let's say you run a play that takes 5 seconds. That leaves Indy with and you don't convert. That leaves Indy with the ball at midfield with 15 seconds left. Okay, they throw an out pattern and they set themselves up for a 35 or at the 35-yard line for a 50-yard field goal. That's kind of what you're looking at. Like, that's not a big risk. And I think it's just stupid to not go for the win there. And it's a 4th and 3. It's not like this is a 4th and 15. 4th and 3. You're not telling your offense, hey, I know you guys can get me 4 yards. Right. It's just all of this just sends the wrong message. I get it that Rex Burkhead was the bell cow for them this past week, but good God, you got to let Davis Mills know I believe in you to get me 4 damn yards.
Yeah, which clearly he doesn't.
Clearly he doesn't. That's my whole point.
Oh man. Yeah, no, it was a wild and crazy week 1. There's a lot of upsets. I know there was some games that you weren't too thrilled about down the stretch, Gel, that ended not the way you wanted to. But what are some of the questions that you have after just seeing this slate of games from week 1?
I guess I'll start it off with, what the hell are we supposed to take from that Pittsburgh-Cincinnati game? Cincinnati lost the turnover battle 5-0. They had 32 first downs. Pittsburgh had 13. Cincinnati converted on 53% of their third downs. Pittsburgh went 4 for 15 on third down conversions. And Cincinnati had the ball for 43 minutes. If I paint that picture, if we eliminate that turnover discrepancy, but I give you those other 3 things, those other 3 numbers, you're sitting there thinking, okay, they probably won like 38-7. They ended up losing in OT. They should have won that game, by the way, if it weren't for a blocked field or a blocked extra point, or if they would have challenged Jamar Chase, who caught the ball with the ball over the goal line, and the refs called it short. And before he went out of bounds, instead, they decided another coaching gaffe, by the way. They decided to play hurry up offense and try to run a play really quickly instead of challenging that or calling a timeout and having the refs review it, because that would have been overturned and that would have been a touchdown. So Cincinnati just shot themselves in the foot. Burrow, is he going to really turn the ball over 4 times again? Probably not.
Probably
so
not.
It's like Cincinnati shot themselves in the foot. And then also on the Pittsburgh side, first half, Mr. Trubisky looked really good. His first 15, 20 plays looked pretty good. But then you get into the second half and he has to make more, the plays aren't as scripted and, it's more of kind of like a read and react. And it's like, that's the Trubisky that I know from Chicago.
I was going to say, I didn't get to see a ton of that game. The Bears are on at the same time. So I was watching mostly the Bears and flip back and forth between that and red zone here. But Mitch Trubisky historically has been pretty decent out of the gate with the plays that you practice leading up to the game. That you, like you said, you've got the first 10 to 15 plays,
15, 20 plays are pretty much scripted. Yeah.
So he's usually pretty good with that. And then once you get him on the fly, that's when it starts to derail a little bit. But no, from this one, for me, I'm not taking too much away from Cincinnati. I think Pittsburgh, obviously it's a nice win for them. Granted, it was sloppy, but I'm not too worried about Cincinnati. Like you said, Burrow's not going to turn the ball over that many times usually in this one. T. Higgins went out fairly early with that concussion, so that was another.
Have you seen any update on his status going into week 2?
We don't have anything at this time. It sounded like he was progressing okay through it. So
it was a pretty nice lick that he took.
Yeah, so keep an eye on that for fantasy purposes. But no, I'm not too worried about Cincinnati. I don't see a Super Bowl hangover or anything like that for them. I think this was just kind of like okay, we're back to week 2 now. Let's just shake this one off and go back out there. So,
well, we have to remember too with Joe Burrow, this was his first. He didn't have any game action in the preseason. He's coming off the appendectomy. So this is his first game action too. And yeah, he might not have looked extremely smooth, but he'll get back to the Burrow that finished off the year on a freaking tear with the Bengals.
I want to go over to the game of the week that you said you were not going to watch at all, Jill. And are the Giants better than we thought, or are the Titans worse than we thought? I don't know what to take from that game. I mean, other than Brian Dable's got some massive stones for going for 2 there.
Which is awesome. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you change a culture, man. Even just little shit like that. That's how you change a culture. And that's what bothers me about the Nathaniel Hackett thing, the Lovie Smith thing. You gotta, all 3 of those guys are first year head coaches. Who do you feel most confident in right now amongst those 3?
Oh, Dable.
It's Dable by a freaking mile. I mean, if you're Hackett and Russell Wilson doesn't convert, at least you made what I think is the right call and giving the ball to your best player, your $245 million player. But getting back to this game, Dayball, hell yeah. Love that call. Saquon looks legit.
Yeah, he looks back.
But I think I take more out of this game is that Tennessee, I don't think they got the same juice that they've had the last couple of years. Tannehill I don't know if he's still rattled from that horrible playoff game that ended their season last year with those 3 picks. Derrick Henry doesn't necessarily have that same burst that he did. He's approaching age 30. He's been worn down. There's only so many, hits that you can take, no matter how big you are. Yeah, Derrick Henry has delivered a lot of hits, but shit, when you're delivering hits, that's also a giant hit on your own body. So Henry and Henry's never been a massive burner until he really gets that head of steam going, but he still didn't look like he had that same burst. And again, Tannehill just does not look dynamic whatsoever. So I guess I'm more down on Tennessee than I am up or high on the Giants.
I think that's where I sit right now too. Like you said, Saquon looked like he was back. He looked like he had that burst that he had early on in his career. So fingers crossed that he's fully healthy, because he's one of the more fun running backs to watch play in the NFL. But yeah, Tennessee, man, that offense, we had questions on it coming into this season too. We said that Indy was going to be the ones to walk away with the division, which we'll see. They didn't look that great first week either against Houston, but no, Tennessee's offense, though, without AJ Brown, Robert Woods didn't look that good either.
Didn't do shit.
He's coming off of an injury, so I'll give him a game or two, but no,
you touched on AJ Brown. Seems like a huge difference maker, where Tennessee's offense clearly fell off, and the Eagles' offense, AJ Brown went off this past week. So AJ Brown, true difference maker. It's, there's that saying where, sometimes to show your true worth, if you're, at work, just take a week of vacation and see what kind of firestorms you come back to. And if they're calling you when you're on vacation and they're like, we don't know what to do, that shows who you work for. That shows them your worth. Same thing here. AJ Brown being gone, that shows how much worth he had, how much value he had to that Tennessee offense. And then obviously also the difference that he made in Philly this week. I've got one more that I want to run at you, and I guess we'll go back to the Bears game. Would Jimmy G have won that game? Trey Lance looked bad, man. Like, he was missing open throws. I know it was sloppy, but Jimmy G's, he went to Eastern Illinois, so he's played in shitty weather. First couple of years he was in New England, so he's at least practiced in shitty weather and got, his little bit of game action was in pretty ideal conditions, but he's used to that Illinois weather, playing at EC or Eastern Illinois. Couple of years in New England, and Trey Lance just looked bad. You think Jimmy G wins that game?
Probably, because it wouldn't have taken much play from San Francisco's quarterback room to win that one. It was ugly. It was one that, as a Bears fan, I was not expecting to win, and glad we ended up walking away with the victory. But yeah, Trey Lance just, I don't know. It's hard to. Kittle was out, which, I think that's going to be more often than not. That's what we've seen the last couple of years. Kittle can't stay healthy. So I think you just kind of scrap that, as this is going to be their usual. And if he's in the lineup, then awesome. But Brandon Ayuk had some nice catches down the sideline, so he looked okay. But I don't know. The Bears defensive line was getting some pressure in there. Their cornerbacks looked halfway decent for the most part. I liked the Bears defense too, because it reminded me of the old Lovie Smith days where they were swarming the ball, trying to punch it out. And I don't know. The peanut punch. Yeah. I saw that from, I think, was it Jalen Johnson, who switched over to Peanut Tillman's number this year, 33. So, yeah.
Well, okay. We're in that number right then. Representing that number right.
Elijah Mitchell went down too. And to me, it kind of seemed like the 49ers weren't using Trey Lance to his full ability either. You saw, like you mentioned earlier on in this episode with the Bears, where second half, they started rolling Fields out. They started having him running a little bit too, or Fields would take off, gain some yards there, where it seemed like San Francisco was almost being too cautious with Trey Lance at times too. I don't know if it had to do with the weather. Maybe they haven't fully opened up the playbook to him, but they weren't really having too many designed runs for him, moving him around at all. And I don't know. He was kind of set up to fail a little bit, but ultimately, yeah, going back to your question, Jimmy G probably would have won them the game, but if you're San Francisco, how bad does it have to get for you to put Jimmy G back into the lineup? That is going to just absolutely kill the confidence of Trey Lance. So I don't foresee that happening, but I'm sure Jimmy G was over there smirking on the sideline, being like, all right.
His handsome face. But okay, so upcoming Niners schedule, he's got Geno next week. If they lose to Geno,
Russell Wilson lost to Geno.
I know, but it feels like a one-hit wonder. Let's be honest.
Geno.
And then he faces Russell Wilson the following week, and then they go to LA. What if they start off this season 1-3? At what point do you pull the plug? Or it could be the opposite, and he this was just a one-off and he shows what he can be next week, at home against the Seahawks. Very possible that he gets back on track, but I don't know, just definitely a storyline we definitely need to watch because they hung on to Jimmy G for a reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we'll see what ends up happening with that. And I want to, I guess, kick it over. I don't really want to talk about this topic, but it was a big one from the weekend. And can the Cowboys win a game without Dak? And also, is Jimmy G somebody? I know Jerry Jones said he's not doing anything. They're not putting Dak on IR. Jerry Jones said he's not looking to get a veteran quarterback coming in. But with Dak's injury history the last couple of years, wouldn't it make sense for the Cowboys to call up San Francisco?
Question is, what do you have to give up?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're only going to have, if Dak is only out for 4 or 5 weeks, they can't give up any picks. Yeah. They can't give up anything legit. I mean, yeah, we'll take him for a 4th, but the Niners clearly aren't willing to give him up for a 4th. You can't be giving up a 1st rounder. No. The Cowboys but Jerry's I bring that up because Jerry is one to be desperate enough and psychotic enough at times to want to make that kind of a move. And they can't. For the Cowboys' sake, I hope that they don't do something drastic like that and give up a 1st for 4 or 5 games and, a couple extra wins. Yeah, it can get you back to the division, potentially winning the division, but I don't think they can. I don't think they need to. I don't think they make a move. I don't think they do. I think that Jerry's just going to really, really push Dak to hey, Dak, how you feeling this morning? Every morning. You ready to go this week? He sounds like a mortician. Okay. I'm sorry.
Gosh. Do you have any more gel?
I'm good. That'll do it for me.
Sounds good. Just one more, just quick one for you. I want to know who's the worst team in the AFC East. Obviously, the Bills are phenomenal, but I mean, New England's offense is going to be atrocious this year. Dude, honestly,
I think by the end of the year, we're going to be saying the Jets are better than the Patriots.
Yeah.
Because at least the Jets have pieces. They have building blocks. Yeah. The Patriots don't even have anything to build on. I mean, Mac Jones, he was the 5th QB picked in last year's draft for a reason. His ceiling is limited. And he's being coached by a defensive coordinator, a shitty one at that. So just weapons wise, non-existent for New England. They're just so damn slow. At least the Jets have some, Breece Hall, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Michael Carter is still out there. Zach Wilson, hell of a lot more athletic than Mac Jones is. So at least you see athleticism with the Jets, or you see that there is some offensive potential for the Jets. I see 0 offensive potential for New England. I mean, straight up.
All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Gel can be found at Das Gel. I can be found at Das JPEG. Make sure you go to our YouTube page, click subscribe, click the bell so that way you know when our live episodes drop. You can ask us any questions on the chat there. We are monitoring that throughout the episode. Make sure you send us any questions to our socials. We've been tweeting out pretty active this last weekend. Appreciate those out there that tweeted back with some questions. Got some start sit ones on Sunday and got some Monday Night Miracles. I know shout out to the one gentleman that needed 70 points and a half PPR from Javante. Had a decent game, but did not happen. Better luck with your week 2 slate. But no, appreciate everybody out there. That's what we're here for. We love interacting with listeners and interacting with you on social media. So appreciate that. Otherwise, Joe, where can they listen to us at?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Just right there, search Dead Arm Sports. You'll find us there. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. 5 stars would be appreciated. take a screenshot of that written review, send it to us on our socials, again, at Dead Arm Sports on Twitter and Instagram, or on our Facebook page. Just search Dead Arm Sports. You can also find us on YouTube. Shocker, just search Dead Arm Sports. And our channel will be sitting there, right? It'll be the first thing at the top of your search bar. You'll find all of our videos, episodes. Every time that we go live, you'll get a notification as long as you hit that alert bell, and we will, you'll see all of our content is right when it goes live, or right when it's scheduled to be released. You'll get a notification. So plenty of content out there. We're going to be cranking it out. We'll be cranking these out multiple times a week. So make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well.
All right. Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. If you tell somebody you know about the podcast, that would be wonderful. We'll be back with you tomorrow on Thursday, and we'll let you know what we're looking forward to. Weekend slate of football, return of our upset picks of the week. Maybe Jill and I can finally pick an upset correct.
So damn close. Freaking no, God, piss. Didn't have the balls to go Appalachian State. I said it was the best bet of the week at App State plus 18, and I almost had them be my upset. Like, didn't do it.
And we'll let you know how our Drew locks ended up after week 1 and give you our week 2 Drew locks for those of you out there for fantasy. Otherwise, Jill, close her out.
Top headline of the day this morning, should have read after this Monday Night Football game. Drew Lock now MVP frontrunner after making QB competition abundantly clear.